Hey guys, how is everybody doing? And today I'm going to be trying something new. Now, usually when I do rankings of certain things, I usually do it the old-fashioned way, something, let's say there's 5 movies, I go from number 5, which is usually the worst, and then I go all the way down to number 1, which is the all-time best. And this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while now. This is an idea that I've wanted to do for a while, but I've just never figured out how to do it because I don't have all the equipment that I really should need for a YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be doing a tier list ranking, and I'm going to be talking about all of these Spider-Man villains. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on every live-action Spider-Man villain, and I'm also going to be including the Spider-Verse villains. Now, it should be noted that I didn't include any of the Sony Spider-Man universe villains. I don't really consider those guys like villains of Spider-Man. I more consider them villains of Venom, Morbius, Craven, and Madam Web. So I will not be including them this time around. I'm only going to be including the Sam Raimi villains, the Amazing Spider-Man villains, the Tom Holland villains, and the Across and Into the Spider-Verse movies. So from what I get, as you can see, that they are all down here. And we just broke it down to simple categories, with S tier being the best, A tier being close to the best, B tier and C tier pretty much being average, and then you got F tier, which is the worst. So I'm going to be giving you my personal opinion on all of these, and just kind of give my quick thoughts on why I believe they belong in each tier. But this is also my first time trying this, so I might not be very good at it. And yes, this is just the corner of my room, as you can see. Over there in the corner, that's where I usually film my videos, but I'm just going to do it in this little corner today just to try something new, I guess. But with that all out of the way, here is my tier list ranking of all the Spider-Man villains. So starting off with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from Spider-Man 1. And should be a no-brainer. He is going into S tier. This is one of my all-time favorite comic book castings. This is one of my all-time favorite villains ever. But Willem Dafoe, just as this character, is just absolutely amazing. And he is probably in running for my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain. I guess I should have said that at the beginning of the video, that I'm not putting this in order of my favorite. I'm just putting them in each tier, I guess. But the first one being Green Goblin, and to me, this has always been one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely adore Willem Dafoe as this character. I feel like he perfectly embodies this character and what it should be. And, when you kind of... And what I really like about his performance as the character is that he's able to play like this scientist father character, to where he seems like a normal person, someone that's like obsessed with his work almost, and kind of like a deadbeat father, I guess you could also say. And not only does he just play a very good part in that, but just when he embodies the character of Green Goblin and embodies that character and that monster character, I guess you could say, the fact how he's able to play both roles is absolutely amazing to me, and I absolutely love that. And to me, this is just easily one of my all-time favorite comic book castings. And not only did he do a really good job in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, to see him come back in Spider-Man No Way Home and to give probably an even better performance is just absolutely awesome. I fucking love this guy. I think he is one of my... like I said, I keep saying he's one of my all-time favorite villains ever in comic book history, and that is the reason that he's no-brainer an S-tier villain.
Love more than a hero is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
And now we're moving on to Dr. Otto Octavius from Spider-Man 2. And a lot like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, this is a no-brainer. This is an S-tier villain for me. Now, honestly, if you ask me today, you ask me tomorrow, Alfred as Dr. Otto Octavius is my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain. You ask me tomorrow, Willem Dafoe is my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain. These two are always battling it out. These two are always in the running for my favorite Spider-Man villain ever. And just Alfred as Dr. Otto Octavius, he is a character that I just grew up absolutely loving. I still have a lot of memories of, of grabbing my grandma's oxygen tube for those, like, sleeping ones, like those sleeping oxygen machines. I took the hose of that and I put it around my neck, and I would basically flayed it around like it was a snake, but I would say that I was Dr. Octopus or whatever. And he is the reason of that. He is the reason why I love this character. He is the reason that every time I think of him, this is the character I think of, and this is who I feel like this character should be. And that kind of just shows that just from that memory alone. And not only that, but I just love how perfectly broken and misunderstood this character is, I guess I could say, because what this character is that he's just someone that is obsessed with his work. This is someone that is obsessed with pretty much his dream of being a scientist and something that he's wanted to create his whole life, and unfortunately just goes horribly wrong because he miscalculated, and he loses everything. Not only does he lose his life's work pretty much, not only does he lose just his dream, he loses his wife, he loses his funding, he loses everything that he once had just because of his science fair project basically gone wrong. And I love how brilliantly broken he is, and I just love how his whole plan as a villain is just to recreate his science fair project, as I like to call it. However, I do kind of have an issue of him wanting to rob the bank in Spider-Man 2 because he needs money to buy the parts, which, why do you need to buy the parts when you can just go ahead and easily steal it, just like how you easily stole the money, which I have no idea, but that's a very small gripe with a amazing character. And even when he came back in Spider-Man No Way Home, I was just over the roof excited. This was a character that I was just so excited for when he was coming back, and that whole bridge scene alone just simplified of how much I love this character. And that's only like one little scene that we get with him being a full-time villain throughout the entire movie. Other than that, he's just wrapped up in his own weaponry, and then he gets taken over and like he becomes regular Otto Octavius all over again. But this is just one of my all-time favorite villains. I absolutely love this character. I absolutely love this casting. And he is one of the main reasons why Spider-Man 2 is my all-time favorite Spider-Man movie. So, moving on from, the only really great Spider-Man villains we've had, I guess I could say. Now we move on to Flint Marko from Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man No Way Home. And for me, he's going to go in B tier. Now, I don't hate this character. I don't think that this is a poorly written character by any means, which there's a moment where I don't like him. I actually really like Sandman in Spider-Man 3. I actually think that he's one of the better parts and one of the more saving graces of the character. And, I hope that we do get to see another live-action appearance from this character, whether it's in Tom Holland's movies or maybe just, I don't know, in something else, maybe in an animated series or whatever. This is a character that I would like to see more of in the Spider-Man universe or wherever. But this has always been a character that I do enjoy. The only thing that I've never liked about this character is how they basically push him into the storyline of him being the person that actually killed Uncle Ben. So the guy that basically you see die in the first Spider-Man movie, and the guy that Tobey hunts down in the first Spider-Man movie, that's not the person that did it. It was actually Flint Marko. And I'm here to tell you, I fucking hate that. I think that is one of the worst parts about Spider-Man 3, and that's just one of my biggest gripes with that film, and one of the biggest issues with that movie, with so many others. But that is one of the main reasons why I don't like Spider-Man 3, is because of that storyline with Flint. But this is a character that I do like. This is a character that I do enjoy. I like a lot like Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2. I love how broken he is. I feel like the storyline with his daughter is a very well character development, to where he's not necessarily a villain. He actually has a motivation as to why he's doing what he is doing. So that is something that I do really enjoy, and I do think that really adds to his character. And with him coming back in Spider-Man No Way Home, I liked, but a lot like another character I'll get to here in a second, I feel like he was kind of just sidelined throughout the entire movie, and he just kind of becomes a villain just out of nowhere in that movie, to where he was like a good guy. He was kind of like helping out Spider-Man or whatever. Like when you first meet him, he's helping out Tom Holland Spider-Man or whatever. But then just randomly, he decides to become a villain, and they never really try to explain why, other than he wants to go home and see his daughter, which I don't know why he had to turn into a villain at the very end of the movie. So, beyond me, I guess. but there's something in my eye. Oh my god. But you know, this is a character that I do enjoy. I do think that he is a good part about Spider-Man 3, but I also just really hate how they included him with the Uncle Ben death. That very much convolutes a lot of things with this trilogy and with Spider-Man and the other two Spider-Man movies. But overall, I do enjoy Flint Marko. I just really hate what they did with a lot of his character decisions, but that is why he's in B tier. And now we move on to the Venom of Spider-Man 3. And this one is a no-brainer for me. He is going straight into F tier.
What the fuck is that?
Now, I want to be perfectly clear. When it is actually Venom, when it actually, has the symbiote around his face and it is Venom being a vicious motherfucker or whatever, I think that is really cool. I think the design of him is cool. I think the physical appearance of him is awesome. And I think of the small moments that we do get of Venom is awesome. But the issue with it is that it's not fucking Venom. It is Eddie Brock. And I've heard so many people say that, well, Eddie Brock is Venom. No, the fuck he's not. Venom is Venom and Eddie Brock is Eddie Brock. And because what the issue is with Spider-Man 3 is that he was never really supposed to be in the movie. Sam Raimi didn't want him in the movie, and that's very clear from the beginning of the fucking movie. Sam Raimi didn't want him, but the studio wanted him after the massive success of the other two Spider-Man movies. They wanted Venom to be the main villain of Spider-Man 3, but Sam Raimi already had other plans with Flint Marko and I think even Harry, But the studio basically forced him to put Venom in the movie, but he didn't want to, and that's very clear from the beginning, because not only is just the character just bland and just boring even when he is Venom, like, I just talked about how cool it is, but at the same time it's pretty bland, but it's just Eddie, and the fucking face peels back too much to where you see the actor that plays Eddie, I forget his name, but I think he was horribly miscast, and you just pretty much see him throughout the entire movie, and I feel like that is one of the worst parts about the character, because, like, I want to see Venom, I don't want to see your fucking stupid face after seeing it all movie long or whatever, but this is just a very disappointing adaptation of the character, and I don't even think that Tom Hardy's Venom is any better. I think in the first Tom Hardy Venom, he's a lot better, but to see where the rest of that trilogy went, and it just turned him into a goofball idiot or whatever, I don't even like what they did there, but hopefully we get a better version of Venom on screen soon. It seems like that we will be getting the symbiote sooner rather than later in the MCU, and I hope they do it justice compared to the last two that we got, and especially to this one. Hopefully we get better ones, but as of right now, we have to deal with this thing. But now moving on to the final villain of Spider-Man 3, and that is Harry, aka New Goblin, as they call him. And, this one's a very complicated one for me. I really do like him. I love the conclusion to this character in this trilogy. I love how they finally bring it all together after setting it up for the last two movies or whatever, or the movie and a half, I guess, of this Spider-Man trilogy, of him wanting to go after Peter and wanting to kill Spider-Man for killing his father. Now, one, I really do like that, but I just really don't like the treatment that they give Harry throughout the whole movie. So because of that, I'm going to throw him in the C tier. Now, as a villain, I honestly feel like that he should have been the main villain in Spider-Man 3. I honestly feel like that that Sandman should have been in it. I definitely feel that Venom should have never been in it. I just spit everywhere. But to me, seeing where this trilogy was going and seeing the setup that it was going with Harry throughout this entire trilogy, I honestly think that Harry should have been the main villain in all of Spider-Man 3. Because I feel like his character and how much they've been setting up throughout the entirety of this franchise, and not this franchise, of this trilogy, I feel like everything that they were setting up, I feel like the conclusion of it should have just been Harry being the main villain. And unfortunately, since Sam Raimi wanted to go with Sandman and Sony wanted Venom in their movie, they included him, and the moments that we do get with Harry versus Peter and Spider-Man or whatever, I do think that those are some of the best moments throughout the entire movie. But however, and they decide to do this stupid amnesia thing to where he basically bonks his head, and he loses his memory for like a good chunk of the movie. And I'm here to tell you, that is one of a lot of weak moments from Spider-Man 3. Can you tell how much I just love Spider-Man 3? But that is another weak moment from Spider-Man 3, is having Harry lose his memory, and then we deal with maybe an hour of him not having his memory, and then just randomly it just comes back after MJ kisses him, which is a fucking stupid Cinderella bullshit or whatever, or Snow White or whatever the fuck, whatever Disney princess gets kissed to wake up or whatever. Which I really don't like that, and that's what puts him in the C tier. But however, when we do get Harry as the villain, especially in the beginning when he's chasing down Peter and they're going throughout New York, and before he bonks his head and loses his memory or whatever, I think that is one of the best moments of the entire movie. But just after that, it's pretty forgettable. But now moving on from Spider-Man 3 and the Sam Raimi trilogy, we are now at the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And starting off with the first villain of the Amazing Spider-Man is the Lizard, aka Dr. Connors. And I don't have any personal issues with this guy. I don't feel like he's written bad or whatever. But this was a character I had a lot of nostalgia with. But on the most recent rewatch of The Amazing Spider-Man, I got to put this character in C tier. Now, again, I don't have an issue with this character. I don't think that he's, written wrong. I don't think that the design of the character is bad by any means. I actually think that the CGI used for the character is actually really fucking good. But this is just a character that's just, he doesn't really necessarily stand out amongst the other villains, especially with all the other villains that we have throughout this entire series and the entire, Spider-Man movies or whatever. And especially in No Way Home, when he comes in No Way Home, he's just like a lot like Sandman. He's just kind of there, but at least Sandman actually had stuff to do. Lizard kind of only shows up for like the fight sequences towards the end, like the apartments, in the apartment scene, or when when they fight at the Eiffel Tower at the very end of the movie with all three Spider-Man. That's really the only times he shows up, and other than that, he doesn't show up at all, and I honestly feel like that was kind of a waste of a character in Spider-Man No Way Home. But just strictly thinking of The Amazing Spider-Man, I do think that there should have been a stronger villain for a first Andrew Garfield movie, but I understand what they were trying to do. And especially seeing other adaptations of this character, both animated and comic, I do feel like that this character had a lot more potential, so that's why I put him in C tier. But now we move on to Jamie Foxx as Electro. And, this is another character to where I like the casting, and I think that Jamie Foxx does good as Electro, but I feel like in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is what holds him back for me, because especially compared to Spider-Man No Way Home, I feel like those are two very different characters and very different interpretations of the character, even though it's played by the same person. So, again, I'm gonna have to put Electro in the C tier, and I'm not doing this on purpose, I promise. But to me, Electro, like I was just saying, there's basically two different versions of him played by the same actor. Because you have Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and played by Jamie Foxx. And before he becomes Electro, his name is Max, and he's this nerdy character that gets walked all over. Nobody really likes him. Nobody fucking cares about him or whatever. They treat him as a joke because he looks like a joke, because he has like weird buck teeth. He got glasses and he got a terrible comb over, which I think that was fucking stupid that they did that. So, and then when he becomes Electro, he's kind of confused and scared and kind of thriving off of the attention that he's getting, which is all he's really wanted, I guess. But and even when he is Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man, I feel like he's just okay. I don't think he's necessarily a bad villain, but I also feel like making him completely blue is a weird choice, but I do like the visual of it. I think visually that is a really cool part. And the only reason that this character kind of gets saved at all and is, a very unique character as like a Spider-Man villain is because of Spider-Man No Way Home. I feel like the redemption arc that Jamie Foxx got to have in Spider-Man No Way Home is one of the main reasons why, he's kind of sitting in C tier, because I really like what they do with him, with this kind of badass character that really thrives off of the electricity that he's getting. And then when he goes full villain, I really enjoy him, and I think he's really fun or whatever, where he's thriving off of the Tony Stark tech. So, yeah, you can clearly tell that I like the Spider-Man No Way Home version of this character, but overall, I don't think he's a bad villain. It's just, could have been better. So that's why he sits at C tier. And now we're going to have to talk about this guy.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
I don't want to talk about this guy, but I got to. And now you got the Green Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, aka New Goblin or Harry Goblin, whatever the fuck they want to call this guy. And this one is also a no-brainer. This guy's going straight into the F tier. I really don't like this version of the Green Goblin. I feel like the character of Harry throughout the entirety of The Amazing Spider-Man, I don't like his character at all. And I feel like the casting for him is also pretty bad, which I guess I'm in the minority with, because I've actually seen a lot of people say that they really like this guy and they really like him in this role or whatever, but I can't agree with that whatsoever. And, you know, just Harry in general throughout the entirety of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I feel like is a gigantic waste because he has so much stories going on and so much going on in just this one film that should have been expanded throughout in a trilogy, to where that's why I've always said that maybe he should have showed up in the first Amazing Spider-Man, and if we did, and who knows if we ever did get Amazing Spider-Man 3, we could have had him become Goblin in that, similar to James Franco in Spider-Man 3. So that's where I've kind of wondered where it would have gone if we actually got a trilogy out of this Amazing Spider-Man movies, and probably could have gotten a trilogy out of this character and actually fledged out story. Because in this movie, he has so much going on. Like, his father just died. He has a relationship with Peter, which is the first time we've ever heard of it. And basically just hopes that you're a comic book fan and already know this type of stupid shit. And then he's dying of the same disease of his father died, which is fucking convenient ass timing. And he's the head of Oscorp. The other people at Oscorp want him gone, and he's trying to find a cure for his disease. And this cure for a disease basically makes him become Green Goblin. And, you know, when he becomes Green Goblin, not only is he just fucking stupid and ridiculous looking and just gross to look at, just him as just a villain, he gets taken out pretty fucking easily. And this was at the point in time where they were trying to set up a Sinister Six. And knowing that Sinister Six never happened, so we never really got to see what that Green Goblin could have been or whatever. And that was the only time we ever saw the character. And to see him get take out so easily like that, I think is a joke. And especially compared to Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, which basically tortured Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland's versions of Spider-Man to where, you know, they weren't the same person afterwards, and he pushed over their limits. This Green Goblin doesn't do that. The only thing that he really does that's, you know, standout worthy is that the fact that he's responsible for Gwen's death, which, again, that's the only thing that he has going for him, is that he's the reason that Gwen died, which is one of the most popular moments in any Spider-Man movie. So that's really the only thing he has going for him, and you know, I can go on and on about this character and why he deserves to be an F tier, but that's why he goes there. And now to cap off the Amazing Spider-Man villains and the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and now we got Paul Giamatti as Rhino, and yeah, he's going straight to F tier. I genuinely don't know what the fuck they were doing with this guy, because the best way to describe this guy is just an idiot yelling stupid shit.
You serious?
And that's all he does. That's all he fucking does, is that he just yells and screams stupid shit throughout the entire movie. And then he gets in a stupid rhino suit and fucking starts screaming more stupid shit. Like, I am the Rhino. And then just starts shooting at random shit. And the CGI on the suit isn't terrible by any means. But the Rhino is not meant to be in a fucking, you know, in a rhino outfit. He's supposed to be a physical rhino, even though we kind of got that in Kraven the Hunter, which, look how that turned out, I guess. But, yeah. This was, and again, going back to the Sinister Six setup that Sony wanted. He was supposed to show up in the Sinister Six movie. He was supposed to get set up for that. And so we were supposed to see more of that. And thank God that didn't happen, because I don't think I would have been able to bear through any of that. I don't think I would have been able to bear through any of that. So that's why Paul Giamatti's Rhino falls into F tier. And so now let's move on to some Tom Holland villains. And the first one that we got is Michael Keaton as Vulture. And to me, this is another no-brainer. To me, he's going straight up into S tier. To me, this is probably the best Spider-Man villain that we have gotten since any of these Sam Raimi Spider-Man villains. To me, Michael Keaton perfectly just embodies this character and perfectly fits this role. And I'm really glad at how much they humanized him, and I'm glad how much they, made him like a fucking actual like human vulture and not some fucking retard that looks like a regular person just wearing a bird outfit doing this or whatever. So I was really happy about that. And what I also like about him is that he's not just like this broken character or this psychopath or whatever like a lot of these other Spider-Man villains that I've talked about. He is just basically like a Heisenberg of the Spider-Man movies, where he's
Stop touching my balls! I can't, Mr. White. It feels good, bitch!
just a normal dude trying to make money for his family and trying to get by because he feels like he's been wronged in the world. And it's similar to Walter White in Breaking Bad, which is why I like him a lot. And, this is just a character that I really like, and I feel like outside of Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, this is the villain that's kind of pushed Tom Holland's Spider-Man the most, because how much of a threat that he embodies throughout this entire movie. That car scene alone pretty much cements him as a amazing Spider-Man villain. I think that Michael Keaton in the role as Vulture is fucking awesome. I really, really love this guy, and, to see him come back in Morbius was a interesting choice, to say the least. But, at least we got to see him. Right? Right? Yeah, right. So, continuing Tom Holland Spider-Man villains. Shocker. And I'm only including one because technically there's two in Spider-Man Homecoming, which you just need one. Just one. I did include him, and I guess I gotta talk about him, even though there's not much to talk about. The Shocker from Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'm only including the black one because he's kind of the main one, and he's going into F tier. There's not much I can say about this guy. I feel like this was a complete joke of a character, and I honestly don't know why he was there. If anything, he's only there to basically have a bodyguard for the Vulture, I guess. Bodyguard? I don't fucking know. But he's going in the F tier. I think this is a fucking stupid thing that they even added into the Spider-Man movies. And I honestly feel like it was a complete waste, because I feel like there's a lot you could have done with Shocker, but you go with this, and you had two of them. You just needed one. Just one. And now let's move on to into the Spider-Verse villains. Now, I only included 3. I am not going to be talking about the Scorpion or Tombstone or whatever. I'm going to be including the actual 3 main villains of the Into the Spider-Verse movies. I feel like that is okay to do, because I feel like if I added the Scorpion and Tombstone, I feel like that would have been pointless. But let's go on and move along and talk about the Prowler, who is the second, I would say the secondary villain of Into the Spider-Verse. And to me, this is a great adaptation of the character, so he's going to go all the way up into A tier. I really, really enjoyed this character of the Prowler, and this was before I even knew the Miles Morales story or the comics or anything about the character. So when I found out that it was actually Miles's Uncle Aaron that was the Prowler, that was one of the biggest shocks for me when I was watching this movie, because I genuinely did not expect that.
I'll find them. You know me, sir. I don't ever quit.
What? What?
And I was not overly familiar with the comics or the character, so that just completely caught me off guard. And, I'm eagerly awaiting to see them adapt this in live action in the MCU. They teased it smallly in Across the Spider-Verse with Donald Glover playing him in live action, which I wouldn't necessarily hate that casting, and it seems like they set him up in Spider-Man Homecoming anyways. But I am eagerly awaiting to see them do a live action adaptation of this character. I feel like there's a lot you could do here. I feel like there is a lot you could do with this character. And what they do with him, I just absolutely love. I feel like the relationship with him and Miles throughout the entire movie is awesome. And I feel like the sequences where he's chasing down Miles or whatever and fighting him or whatever, like in Aunt May's house, and that scene where Miles takes off his mask to show him that it's really him, and Uncle Aaron realizes that he's been fighting his nephew this whole time. And that scene where he dies is just absolutely heart-aching to me. But yeah, this is one of the best Spider-Man villains that we have, and I am eagerly awaiting to see what a live-action version of this character looks like. And now let's move on to the main villain of Into the Spider-Verse with Kingpin. And if I'm completely honest, I don't really like this character and this specific version of this character, because especially when you have Vincent D'Onofrio playing him in the Daredevil show, which is one of the best comic book castings ever and one of the best live-action comic book villains ever. So to compare him to this version is kind of tame, and I don't necessarily enjoy him. However, that does not mean that I hate him, but I do like a lot of the decisions that they do with him. So for me, he's going to go into B tier. I almost said bear tier. And going into B tier. Now, one of my biggest gripes with this character is the fucking design of him. Now, I understand it's more comically... I know it's more comic accurate, which is what Into the Spider-Verse is about, making it comic accurate and making you feel like you're reading a comic book. So it makes sense why they did that. But I just think that's fucking ridiculous to look at, where it's just this big body with a peanut head, excuse me. So that's one thing that I don't like about this movie. But you know, the character of Kingpin I do enjoy. I think that in this movie alone, I think he is pretty enjoyable. But like I said, compared to Vincent D'Onofrio, I don't really necessarily like him, because I feel like Vincent does an amazing job as this character. But I really like the story that they tell here with his family, where he was fighting Spider-Man, his wife and son, I believe, or daughter. I think it was his son. They find out that he's actually not a very good dude, and he's actually a villain, and he's not who he says he is. And they try to run away from him, but they die in a fatal car accident. And so now Kingpin is trying to create a collider to where he can basically have his family back. So I feel like that whole brokenness to this character and the emotion side to this character, I think is really awesome, and I would like to see that with Vincent D'Onofrio's character, which they've seemed to be doing in Daredevil Born Again after Vanessa died, which, spoilers, I guess. But yeah, I enjoy this character. Just again, compared to Vincent D'Onofrio, I just don't really like him. And now let's move on to Lady Octavius, which I believe is Olivia Octavius. I believe her name is Olivia Octavius in Into the Spider-Verse. And, you know, this is actually a version of the character that I actually really enjoy, and I really like the change of making her a female to kind of change it up a little bit. And, you know, just throughout the whole movie, I actually just really enjoy her, so I'm going to put her up in B tier as well. This is a character that I've always really enjoyed, and, you know, to kind of see the references to Spider-Man 2, like there's like a moment in the beginning where there's a montage where they're fighting, and, you know, it pays tribute to Spider-Man 2. And, you know, I just like the different personality that they gave her and what they do with her. And I'm glad that they never try to replicate or try and pay homage to Alfred's version of it. And they just made her one own character. So that's something that I really like. But, you know, compared to Alfred's character, this one is kind of tame. But I do really enjoy her. I feel like her attitude throughout the entire movie is fun. I do really enjoy a lot of the sequences that she's in, especially when you first find out that she's Lady Olivia Octavius or whatever. Like, I really like her. And as a henchman for Kingpin, she actually becomes useful. I don't really like how the arms are rubber, though. I feel like the rubber fucking arms or whatever, I think that was kind of ridiculous. But now let's move on to Spider-Man Far From Home. And I believe the only villain in it is Mysterio. I'm not including the Cloud villains because it's pretty much Mysterio. But now you have Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. And for me, a lot of people seem to have the argument which villain is better between Vulture or Mysterio. But to me, I feel like there is different levels to this. And I think that Vulture is superior over Mysterio. But that does not mean that I don't like the character, because he's going all the way up in A tier right next to the Prowler. To me, Jake Gyllenhaal's performance as Mysterio is one of the best villains that we have in the MCU, and one of the best villains in live-action Spider-Man. I really love the change in the character to where he plays like this that he pretends to play this off-world character, this off-world superhero that's come to Earth to save it from these cloud monster things, to make him look like a hero in front of Spider-Man and Nick Fury, in front of the entire world, to trick him for whatever fucking reason to get back at Tony. I have no idea. That's kind of the reason he's in A tier, because I think his motivation is pretty stupid. But yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is awesome, and I think that he also gives off some of the best visual aspects that we've seen in a Spider-Man movie. I think the whole visual of like the scene where Tom Holland sees Mysterio's powers for real this time, and kind of shows off what he is. I think that whole visual is fucking awesome, and that is one of the best moments in the entire movie. So yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio lands into A tier. And now let's move on to Across the Spider-Verse. And now a lot of people like to say that Spider-Man 2099 is a villain of the movie, but I've never necessarily considered him a villain. I more just thought of him as him trying to save the universe as to Miles not fucking listening. So I don't necessarily consider him a villain. I do, however, consider Spot a villain. And as of right now, I still don't know how to feel about this character, and I still don't know how to feel about this villain. Now, I'm sure I'll change my mind once we get beyond the Spider-Verse, and I'm sure once we get beyond the Spider-Verse, I might even love this villain. But as of right now, I gotta put him in C tier. Now, I don't hate this character, and I don't think that this is a bad villain. I just feel like he's kind of played too much as a joke. Now, in the moments I do think that's pretty fun. I think the design of him and the idea of him is cool. I think the backstory of him is kind of forced and doesn't really... I feel like that's just forced just to have him know that he's Miles or whatever. But I can excuse that. But the visual side of him and the animation with him and in the entirety of the movie is awesome. And I do like how they're setting him up to be the reason that Miles' dad is dead and that Miles can't even stop him because it's supposed to happen. But again, once we get beyond the Spider-Verse, I'm sure I'll change my mind on this character. But as of right now, he is in C tier, but I still enjoy him as a character. I'm just waiting to see how I truly feel about him once we get the overall conclusion to this character. And now let's move on to the final villain. Now, for Spider-Man Brand New Day, I only included the main villain. I didn't include anyone like Scorpion. I didn't include Tombstone. I didn't include the Hand because, those are very small villains that never really showed up throughout the whole movie. I should have just said I'm including main villains of the Spider-Man movies. So, now, I guess, spoilers. I'll have that in the title, so you've been warned already. But we have Jean Grey as the villain in Spider-Man Brand New Day, played by Sadie Sink. Now, I think that Sadie Sink gives an amazing performance as this character, and I am very excited to see where they go with this character. I'm very excited to see what they do with her in the new X-Men movie. She's rumored to show up in the Secret Wars movie, so I'm very excited to see what they do with her in that. But as a villain for a Spider-Man movie, I don't necessarily like that. I honestly feel like they should have had like an actual Spider-Man villain be a Spider-Man villain in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So, I don't like how they made Jean Grey the villain of the movie, but that's not necessarily saying that she was a bad villain, because I do think that she was an awesome villain throughout the entire movie, and once again pushed Tom Holland to his limits, and pushed him into ways to where, she emotionally attacks him, physically attacks him, and it gets into his mental health a lot. And I really, really, really loved that throughout the entirety of Spider-Man Brand New Day. However, I just didn't like how they made her the main villain in Spider-Man Brand New Day when it should have been an actual Spider-Man villain. However, I'm still going to put her in A tier. I really enjoyed her throughout the entire movie. I feel like Sadie Sink gave an amazing performance as this character, and once again, I'm very excited to see what she does with this character in the future, and I think that she was also just really, really good casting. But, I keep saying it, but I just really don't like how they made her the main villain. I feel like if it was any other movie, I would have been more forgiving. I just really wish it was more of a Spider-Man villain that was the main focus, and, maybe even Scorpion at this point. I think I would have preferred him. But who knows? But that is it, guys. That is my official tier list ranking of all of the main Spider-Man villains. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This is something different that I've done on my channel. This is not something I necessarily do all the time, and hopefully that it turned out good. But let me know what you guys thought about the video, and if you liked it, maybe I'll do more of this. We'll see. But thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, like it. If you loved it, subscribe with the bell notifications so you will get notified for all of my latest videos. Let me know your guys' favorite Spider-Man villains down in the comments below, and we shall talk about it. And as always, I'll see you all in my next video.